By now, you must have come across this statement by Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal.
Healthy ice cream, zero gluten free, whatever, I don't know, vegan, ये सब शब्द लगा के अच्छी पैकेजिंग करके हम स्टार्टअप बोलते हैं अपने आप को. ये स्टार्टअप नहीं है, ये एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप है, ये बिजनेस है. दूसरी तरफ सेमीकंडक्टर्स में ग्रोथ हो रही है. आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस खुद की अपने देश की बन रही है लोगों की. दे आर इन्वेस्टिंग हेविली टू बिकम सेल्फ रिलायंट, बिल्डिंग चिप्स, AI मॉडल्स which will prepare the nation for the future. भारत ने क्या करना है? आइसक्रीम बनानी है या चिप्स बनाने हैं?
Last week, he was speaking at an event called the Startup Mahakumbh. There, Goyal drew a comparison between Indian startups and their Chinese counterparts. And of course, he did not mince words when he spoke. Startups in India, Goyal said, are too focused on food delivery, betting, and fantasy sports apps. While in China, startups are busy working on semiconductors, artificial intelligence, among others. Now, the minister's attempt was to give a reality check to the Indian startup ecosystem, to tell them to aspire and aim for bigger innovations and not be satisfied with just being delivery boys or just stick to dukandari, in his words. Now, this is a sitting Union Minister for Commerce and Industries who was talking about India's startup scene, and not just any analyst sitting abroad and lecturing what is wrong with Indian startups. So, scrutiny, the meaning and the interpretations of Piyush Goyal's comments was far greater. As one would expect, this message did not go across as seamlessly as Goyal would have wanted. Entrepreneurs are divided. A section believes such taunts for a booming ecosystem is demotivating. Many did not like Piyush Goyal's tone, which was almost belittling the Indian startup ecosystem. Another section defended Piyush Goyal's comments, saying his remarks must be taken in the right spirit. Goyal, on his part, has given a clarification, and he has accused the Congress of deliberately misinterpreting and twisting his comments. But in this video, let's look at the story with two key arguments coupled with facts and figures. Hello and welcome, I'm Shubham Chauhan. Let's get started. Now, at the outset, like Goyal pointed out, there is little doubt on India's startup ecosystem and the way it has boomed in recent years. From around 502 in 2016, India currently has over 1,57,706 startups. As of April 2025, India has 115 unicorns. So these are companies that are valued at $1 billion or more. India is also the third largest startup hub after the United States of America and China. Now, what these startups have done is create jobs. As per government data, startups in India have created over 17.28 lakh direct jobs. The IT services sector is leading at 2.10 lakh, followed by healthcare and life sciences and professional and commercial services. Now, Piyush Goyal, the union minister, in his speech did raise an objection on the nature of jobs being created by some startups in this system. He said Indian startups are focused on food delivery apps, which is making unemployed youths into cheap labor.
We are focused on food delivery apps, turning unemployed youth into cheap labor so the rich can get their meals without moving out of their house. And against that, what does a Chinese startup do? Work on developing electric mobility, battery technologies, and with that, they're today dominating the electric mobility ecosystem. We are very proud of what India has done. But are we the best in the world as yet? Not yet. Should we aspire to be? Or are we going to be happy being delivery boys and girls?
Of course, this is in reference to apps like Zepto, Zomato, Swiggy, Flipkart that cater to the daily needs of millions of urban Indians. Groceries, daily essentials, electronics, you name it, and you have it delivered within minutes through just a click. These Indian startups have championed this model of quick commerce, and it has clicked with the urban population as well. But let's dwell for a second on what Goyal calls cheap labor. Is it a bad thing to have this cheap labor given the economic circumstances we are in, when unemployment in the country is such a big issue? In fact, a survey in 2024 found out that 77.6% of gig delivery workers reported earning less than 2.5 lakh rupees annually. So that's about 20,000 rupees a month. Of course, the exact amount varies on a lot of factors like the company, location, incentives, etc. But the understanding the financial literacy of gig delivery partners' report had surveyed over 2,000 gig delivery workers from 40 cities in India. And this survey found that nearly 20% of these workers had an annual income between 2.5 lakh rupees and 5 lakh rupees. And only 2.6% of the workers surveyed reported earnings in the range of 5 lakh to 7.5 lakh rupees a year. Now, writing for Deccan Herald, former Finance Secretary Subhash Chandra Garg makes an apt point. Garg points out that what Goyal calls cheap labor is actually creating jobs with wages. In his piece, he writes that an average gig worker's pay is slightly less than India's per capita income of 2.06 lakh rupees. And this figure is comparatively and comfortably higher than the average per capita private consumption of 1.45 lakh rupees. Besides, the money these gig workers earn in such harsh conditions helps them pursue their studies and exams in many cases. SC Garg writes that instead of calling out this cheap labor, Piyush Goyal should rather focus on wageless jobs, which India is creating. Basically, wageless jobs where no money is being paid. Data from the government's periodic labor force survey 2023-2024 shows India created 8.4 crore jobs in agriculture and 5.9 crore jobs of unpaid labor in household enterprises between the year 2018 and 2024. And these jobs account for over 88% of all jobs created. Garg says it is these wageless jobs that actually cover the larger problem of unemployment. Net-net, the point being these startup jobs are far better than wageless ones or outright unemployment and need not be talked down upon. Now, let's come to the other bit, which is the Chinese comparison. Yes, there is no hiding from the fact that Indian startups have been behind the curve when it comes to innovations in the tech space. While we have the Swiggies and Zomatos, we don't quite have India's homegrown Microsoft or Oracle for that matter. In China's case, companies like ByteDance that makes TikTok, EV car maker BYD have dominated the global space in their respective sectors. Now, something amazing or mind-blowing that China makes or does gets a lot of attention globally as to how did they pull it off. The latest example is AI chatbot DeepSeek. DeepSeek makers claim this AI chatbot was made at a cost of $6 million, which is a fraction of what its rivals like ChatGPT and others cost. In India, Goyal said India has only 1,000 deep tech startups. Deep tech companies are those that tackle complex problems or tough problems using advanced science like engineering or even artificial intelligence for that matter. But how about we flip this argument that Goyal is making and pose the same question to him? What steps has the government taken to promote more innovations in this space? You see, in China's case, the regime there under Xi Jinping was very clear. It wanted cutting-edge technology of its own. So all startups, companies, their owners were asked to align with the government's vision on this. And over the years, policies, funding, and everything around it was planned to get the right results. Take tech, for instance. In 2020, Beijing planned to invest $1.4 trillion as part of an investment plan, a long-term investment plan over 5 years. India, on the contrary, was just at $150 billion. In 2024 alone, China slashed $361 billion in taxes and fees for high-tech firms, including $80.7 billion in R&D deductions. In fact, in 2023, China got 40% of the total venture capital funding in the entire world. And India, in comparison, just was at 5%. Why this disparity? The question to the government would then be, why aren't we investing enough in research and development? Why isn't the government funding enough? Why can't India come up with something that could be the next breakthrough that the world talks about? And here comes one of the problems. In 2022, government think tank Niti Aayog and Institute for Competitiveness came out with a study. It said India's spending on just research and development, that is R&D, is among the lowest in the world. In fact, India's spending has declined from 0.8% of the GDP in 2008-2009 to 0.7% in 2017-18. Data shows that India's gross expenditure on R&D is lower than the other BRICS countries as well, that is Brazil, Russia, China, and South Africa. These countries spend about 1 to 2% respectively. Now, while the world average is at around 1.8%, so by both margins, India is pretty low in this table. India, like I said, is stuck at 0.7%. The private sector too in India is not doing too well in this regard. It is contributing just 36.4% of their spending on R&D. And compare this to China and US as well, which is spending 77% and 75% respectively. So the private sector is spending much higher in US and China than what we are seeing in India. Besides, there is also a big problem or obstacle in India's case: regulatory mechanisms and the bureaucracy. For startups to not just work but also thrive, you need to have a conducive environment for them. And that can only happen when permissions are simplified, taxations are simplified, R&D is encouraged over a period of time. In India, there's the GST that is a headache of sorts for so many small businesses and startups wanting to do big things. After Goyal's remarks, many entrepreneurs also pointed out on social media how filing GST returns was a pain and how many even had to wait for months to get basic permissions in place. If that wasn't enough, the Modi government had also something in place which is called the angel tax, where capital expenditure of startups like buildings, equipment, etc. would also be taxed. Thankfully, that was repealed in the 2024 budget tabled by Nirmala Sitharaman. It almost feels, especially after hearing those who are against Goyal's remarks, that startups in India, a large chunk of startups in India, are thriving not because of the government, but despite the government. So while it's all rosy to talk about asking startups to step up their game, make in India, and sort of coming up with bigger innovations, maybe introspection on part of Piyush Goyal, the Union Commerce Minister, who's meant to design policies around this, and the Modi government at large, wouldn't be that bad an idea. That's all we have for this report. Thanks for watching.